Yes, dear learners, this is Odong Paul Apalokwang, a history expert, Trinity College Nabingo. I welcome you to this program of the e-learning and wish you a safe life where you are. Today, we are going to handle something to do with the history, specifically history paper 1, that is Africa, National Movement and a New State of Africa. And we are in the third zone where we are dealing with the post-independent problems in Africa. Initially, we have looked at the struggle for independence, the liberation movements, how key players like Jomo Kenyatta, Abibi Bogoba, among others, struggled for independence. And immediately after independence, all the new states of Africa experienced and are still experiencing what is called the post-independent problems. These problems emanated during colonial rule, and now even after independence, we still have these problems. Mzee Jomo Kenyatta described these problems into 3 words, the PID, to refer to poverty, illiteracy, and diseases. But these problems, as we are going to look at them in detail, they are more than the PID as described by the former prominent nationalist in Kenya in the name of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. Now, these problems, after independence, are divided into 2. We have the general problems and we have specific problems. Now, general problems, these are problems that cut across Africa. All African states experience and are still experiencing some of these problems. So among others, we have the problems of poverty, we have problems of food crisis, you may refer to it as famine. We have problems of rural-urban migration, we have problems of new colonialism. Now, new colonialism in particular, these are problems that can be defined in the form of colonial legacy. That is, new colonialism is a new form of colonialism. It is an indirect domination of post-independent African countries by the former colonial masters. In history, we normally refer to them, we normally make a statement that Africans attained independence through the front door, but lost it through the back door. That is new colonialism, which are evidenced in its social, political, and economic aspects, where people prefer to embrace the Western culture and develop inferiority complex about the African culture. So neocolonialism has been a major problem, and it is still a major problem in Africa, and it has kept African countries backward. We have problems of corruption. This also cut across Africa. It is in terms of misappropriation of the public resources by the people who have been put in power. We have problems of violation of human rights, rigging of the elections. We have tribalism. We have a problem of nepotism, sectarianism, that is religious differences, the conflict between the Muslims, Christians. Even among Christians, there is a form of division based on religious sect. We have problems of regional imbalance in development. You find some leaders tend to promote development in areas of their origins and neglect other places. Now, this cut across the African countries. We have problems of interstate conflict. We have problems of embracing Western culture in terms of education, which is theoretical. We have problems of unemployment. As you are revising, try to look at the causes and effects of some of these problems. Otherwise, these problems share the similar causes, and the impact, the consequences are more negative than positive. Now, these are the problems we refer to them as general problems because they cut across all post-independent African countries. These post-independent African countries are either referred to as new states of Africa, also referred to as the African countries that have attained independence. And most African countries have attained independence with the exception of Western Sahara. Now we have the problems called specific problems. Now with the specific problems, these are problems in particular countries, which when we are revising, we look at the problems based on that country, the causes, and the consequences of these problems. For example, we have four major specific problems. One is the military coups, also referred to as coup d'etat. After independence, many African countries experienced military coups. A good example, 1952 coup in Egypt, which was spearheaded by Abdel Nasser and led to the overthrow of King Farouk. We had, even in Uganda, there are examples of military coups in 1971 when the later referred to as Field Marshal Idi Amin Dada overthrew the government of Dr. Apollo Milton Obote. We had military coups like Ghana experienced more than 6 military coups from 1966 up to 1981. Nigeria, the same thing, experienced about 3 coups in 1966, 2 coups, one in January, one in July. Then again in 1975, there was a coup in Nigeria, which led to the overthrow of the government of Jacob Gowon. Now, those are military coups. When you're reversing, the causes of these coups were justified by the weakness of the current government. Then we had revolutions. Now, revolutions, these are sudden political, social, and economic changes. But in this case, we look at mainly these revolutions in specific countries. For example, the revolution in Zanzibar, 1964. There was a revolution which occurred in Rwanda in 1959 when the majority ethnic group, the Hutu, overthrew the Tutsi minority government. Now, whenever we talk about a revolution, these are political, social, and economic changes that are either fundamental, they are either sudden, even the coups are part of the revolutions. But to separate coups and revolutions, we look at coups as military takeover. Then revolutions are those changes brought about by the new government in power. Now, this has been a very big problem in Africa because some of these revolutions had positive and some had a negative impact. The negative impact, therefore, became a major problem. Sometimes it contributed to the rise of dictators. We can give an example of 1969 coup in Libya, which led to the overthrow of King Idris and the rise of Gaddafi. In as much as Gaddafi promoted development, but he was on a record as one of the prominent dictators, he did not promote any form of peaceful change of government. These are some of the problems which are experienced in very many African countries, leading to violation of human rights. We have problems of the secession wars. Now, the word secession is from the word secede. To secede is to break away. Now, during colonial partition, during the process of partition and scramble for Africa, the colonialists decided to create their own boundary. They decided to divide Africa into smaller political units for their own interest. Now, immediately after independence, some region developed desire to break away. Now, specifically, the secession wars were experienced in Nigeria, where the Biafra, led by General Odimogu Ojukwu, declared Biafra region in eastern Nigeria an independent state. And this struggle sparked off from July 1967 until 1970, when the secession attempt was defeated. There was another secession war led by Mose Shombe that was in Congo. Immediately after Congo attained independence, 6 days after, Mose Shombe declared Katanga an independent state. This led to another secession war that lasted up to 1965 until the rise of a new military regime that overthrew the government of Joseph Kasavubu. That was Seseko Mobutu. There was another secession war in Sudan, which sparked off even before independence. That was 1955 and lasted up to 2011, when the people in southern Sudan, through a referendum, were granted independence. Now, the secession wars also occurred in the Horn of Africa, that is in Ethiopia. Eritreans fought from 1960 up to 1993, when they broke away. Now, when you're looking at these secession wars, the guideline is to look at the background of this secession attempt, look at the reasons which led to secession war, and then look at the effects. Now, where the secession wars were successful was only Eritrea and southern Sudan, where you are expected to give the reasons for the success. But where the secession wars fail, like in the Biafra War of Secession, Katanga War of Secession, you can give the reasons for the failure. Then we have another major specific problem, that is the civil wars in Africa. Now, civil wars are different from liberation wars. The liberation wars, these were the wars for the struggle for independence. Meanwhile, the civil wars, we look at these wars after independence. Because of various reasons, especially the dictatorial nature of the post-independent governments, nepotism, rigging of the election, and other external forces, the weakness of OAU, the double standard of UNO, and the interests of other neighboring countries facilitated these civil wars. Now, the civil wars, these are wars against the governments by a group of disgruntled people. A good example of the civil wars in Africa, look at Angola. There was a civil war led by UNITA leader Jonas Savimbi, which lasted up to 2002 after the assassination of Jonas Savimbi in February 2002. Then we have a civil wars even in Uganda. Uganda experienced one of the longest civil war, led by Joseph Kony, the leader of Lord Resistance Army. These civil wars occurred in very many parts of Africa, but specifically when you are revising, look at this civil war in Chad, which started against Tom Balbaye Francois, led by the Frolinat leaders, including Gokone. Then we have the other civil wars in in Sudan, in as much as it was also a secession war, but it was partly a civil war. Now, the difference between a civil war and a secession war is that the secession was an attempt by a particular region to break away. What happened in Uganda and Buganda in particular was not referred to as a civil war. In Buganda, there are two major crises. There is the secession attempt. It was an attempt, it was not a war. But there was 1966 constitutional crisis, which happened when Obote abolished or abrogated the 1962 independent constitution and enacted a new constitution known as the Pigeon-Hole Constitution. While the secession, the other crisis was the 1953 Kabaka crisis. But all of these crises were attempts. It provoked attempts by the Buganda, especially under Luchiko, in an attempt to break away from Buganda, but it failed. So, whenever you are looking at military coups, revolutions, and all these post-independent problems, look at them categorically. The coups look at the causes and effects, and you find that the causes of these coups are almost the same. Because these coup plotters, the leaders of the coups, they have reasons to justify the attempt to overthrow the government or the overthrow of the government. But for the revolution in Rwanda, it was a ethnic conflict between the Hutus and the Tutsi, which lasted until 1994, when it reached the climax of the genocide. Now, dear students, as you are revising, I expect you to draw some tables, especially of the coups, civil wars. When you draw the table, try to show the table of the country, the year of the coup plotter, the leader of the coup, and the incumbents. As we come to conclusion of this brief interaction, I'm giving you an assignment. The assignment is examine the causes and consequences of the food crisis in one of the new states of Africa. I repeat, examine the causes and consequences of food crisis in one of the new states of Africa. So I wish you a nice holiday.